Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and today is Father's Day. And what a better way to celebrate Father's Day than having a father and daughter duo that have written a book about live concert experiences. And by the way, before you say anything, I absolutely should have done this for Mother's Day. And I've already got a guest booked for next year where I have a daughter and a mom want to join me to talk about their rock and roll adventures. But with that said, Terry, Moira, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for
Great,
having us.
great to be here. Yes.
Yeah, so Terry and I were lucky enough to meet before Columbus, the only show I've made this calendar year. And we got to talk, and he shared a little bit about that he had heard the podcast and wanted to talk to me. And we exchanged a couple of emails, very kind enough to send me the book. And when we were talking about, hey, I want to do something for Father's Day, he very politely raised his hand and said, hey, do you think this would work out for us? Welcome to the podcast.
Great to
What,
be here.
yeah, what'd you think of the Columbus show?
Oh, fantastic. Moira, and this will probably come out during the show, post-COVID has not been attending concert. Plus, she now lives in, of all places, appropriately, New Jersey instead of
Okay.
Ohio, where she grew up. So I've been taking people to their first Bruce shows, unless I go by myself. So this time I took my brother-in-law. He'd never been to a Bruce show, has been a fan a long time. So it's opened up that opportunity. Nothing like going with Moira, no matter who goes with me. But it's a neat time when you take somebody who's never gone. That was a great show for a lot of reasons, but when you're with somebody, Andy opened with Youngstown, and we live right in the Youngstown Warren region, so that was special. I think when you met me, I had a Youngstown shirt on.
Yes, you did. And so I love that. Yeah, I was really happy with the show. I did not realize till afterwards. I am more of a new Bruce fan. I became obsessed after The Rising. So all my wish lists are things from the Magic and Rising and other things. And so I do not have the desire that people like to hear things from Darkness or necessarily Born to Run or early. We got a couple of songs that I was like, man, the classic fans are loving it. But I did not realize when he did I'm Going Down that checked off I had now heard every song live from Born in the USA. That was, there is a wonderful database, My Boss Fan, that you can go sign up for a free account and My Boss Time. And you list all the concerts you've gone to, and behind the scenes, it does things like what percentage of songs have you heard from this album, and what's your most heard song. And so that checked off Born in the USA completely. And I was
Oh,
like, oh,
Moira's fully aware of that site because you're the one who told me about it on your podcast.
yeah,
And I was down for the concert and walked over to meet you with you. Another guy I've been going to concerts with recently with the Brotherhood and
yeah,
Sisterhood of Springsteen that's out there. His name's Pete. We call him Outlaw Pete. We
yeah.
walked over because I'm telling him about this site and I'm saying, I just heard it on a podcast, telling him about the podcast. And I see you sitting over there in the shirt. And I'm like, I think that's him. That's what made me come over there and ask you. Oh, yeah, we got obsessed with that post Columbus concert that night. We
Yeah,
all went. I've been to 10 shows. Pete's been to like, I don't know, 40.
yeah.
So we both got pretty obsessed pretty quick for that.
All right, so we're going to get you in this conversation in a minute more, but I did want to share that I've talked about this, and you were someone I mentioned that you were so nice. You're like, I don't want to bother you, and I've told multiple people, it's never a bother when someone comes up and says, I listened to you on the podcast and I wanted to meet you. That's always a joy. That just, it doesn't happen enough that I'm tired. I'm not Troy Aikman that's tired of people bothering him for autographs. But yeah. So I'm gonna ladies first. I always like to start at the beginning. So talk about where you grew up and let's pretend pop isn't here. What kind of music were your parents listening to when you grew up? And then it'll be your turn afterwards, Terry.
Yeah, my dad mentioned, grew up in the Youngstown, Warren area of Northeast Ohio, which is a really interesting place. It's a former manufacturing town where a lot of the manufacturing is no longer happening, unfortunately. Um, so it was a really interesting place to grow up. And it's obvious I'm on this podcast with my dad, so there was a lot of Springsteen and a lot of classic rock in our house growing up. But also, I really think I got like the best of both worlds because my mom's music taste is fairly different from my dad's. It's very common for him to mention a song that he thinks everyone knows, and my mom is, I've never heard of this in my life. So my mom likes more pop, more from the same era, but pop and some like classic country, and is, I think my dad is equally into Broadway now, but when I was younger, my mom was more into it. So I grew up with also like show tunes and pop from the 80s. And so I really got quite a mix and had a pretty eclectic music taste.
So I find there are two kinds of guests. My guests drop into two categories. Those who tolerate their parents' music, and the moment they have control of their own radio dial, they find their own voice. And then when they circle back, and the story I often say is when you're 30, you go, wow, that Johnny Cash guy dad liked, he's pretty good. But the other is someone that never abandons their parents' music and just expands their horizon to add whatever, whether it's hip hop or grunge or blues or whatever they find. So I take it you were more of the second type.
Definitely
Okay.
the second type.
Okay, good. All right. So Terry, did you grow up in the same area or is this a recent move?
I've
Of our,
lived here all
okay.
my life, and just like Moira said, manufacturing town. My parents were 14 when I was born,
Okay.
so it was almost like the big brother and big sister exposing you to music. That was like a lot of contemporary stuff as I grew up is what they listened to and stuff going back just a little bit. So they exposed me to all that. My dad gave me his Bruce albums that he had probably when I was around 11 or 12. He had played them around the house, Fleetwood Mac, Janis Joplin, everything Moira's heard many times. Great town to grow up in, a lot of friends, just a lot of friendly people, close to Cleveland where the Rock Hall is. So that later on that happened.
Yeah.
And Moira said with the steel town, we lost a lot of jobs. So how do you not become a Springsteen fan when you
Yeah.
live here? I was blessed to be a superintendent of schools of a local school district called Lordstown. And while I was there, our car plant closed. This was just within the last 10 years.
Wow.
So we struggled with that even then. And it was really difficult seeing people go through that, seeing families go through that. And now I don't know how many times I listened to Wrecking Ball, how depending on the time in your life, different songs are important and what have you. So just like things help you get through things. That's what happens with Bruce music a lot. I will add one thing to Moira's. She took dance, and she talks about this in the book. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And she did the Two Kings, and she was I don't know 6 or 7.
Oh, no, I was a little older. I think I was
Real
10 or
okay,
11. It was when Michael Jackson died. They did our recitals had themes every year. So they did a half tribute to Michael Jackson and half tribute to Elvis. So like the king of pop and the king of rock. And I assume where you're going with this is that I got really into Elvis after that.
obsessed would be the word.
Yeah, that would be the word.
And I heard more Elvis music because of Moira than I ever heard. My parents liked Elvis, but they weren't listening to too much Elvis. So my dad liked him, but we listened to a lot of other stuff.
So about how old were you when you got your Elvis phase?
I think I was probably 10.
Okay.
I think that was 2010 when Michael Jackson died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's I find amusing is probably about the same age. My son was 9 to 11. I'm not sure exactly, but we went on a family vacation and one of the stops was Memphis and we toured Graceland, right? And that was his moment. He was obsessed that you couldn't go upstairs in Graceland. The idea that Elvis never entertained people upstairs, so therefore we didn't allow people. And he's, what's up there? And I'm trying to say probably storage, Chris. It's a museum now, but I need to find Lisa Marie's daughter, marry her so that I can see upstairs in Graceland. So he became a huge Elvis fan, and he is to this day. He will, if he's in the radio, if we're in the car, depending on his mood, he will go to the Elvis channel on Sirius XM and listen. So yeah, so that it's interesting how there is a reason they call music timeless, right? That it is just there and you discover it all over again.
Yeah.
So you talked about your dad giving you his Springsteen albums. I'll start with you this, Terry, and this may not be, as I often tell people that are from Jersey, asking them when they discovered Bruce Springsteen is asking like, when did you find out your parents used Tide soap? It's just always been there. But if you can, you remember, if not when you first heard about Bruce, but when it became significant to you, right? Was there a road to Damascus moment where the Bruce and his music became more than just something your dad listened to?
Yeah, we rented a lot. They were young, so we rented, and almost seemed every year we were moving within town. And I always, for a little bit there, ended up in an attic room
Okay.
in wherever we lived, rented houses for the most part. So I remember taking those albums and going up to my room in the attic and just being amazed. And there was a radio station out of Cleveland called WMMS, and Little Stevie talks about WMMS and the impact they had being an early adopter of Bruce. And Bruce mentioned one of the DJs while we were in Columbus, actually. And I listened to that because they played Springsteen all the time. So it was my gateway. And it was, like I said, I was probably 11 or 12 when that happened.
It, can you, it would be easy for me to fill in the lines, but I'm going to let you. Is there a reason why that music spoke to you, Terry?
Yeah, I really think it's where I live.
Yeah.
When you hear that music, Backstreets, he talks about Terry, and I was just like, oh wait, I know better, but you know that. And then he made Terry's song later, and wow, this is amazing. But just his understanding and his writing of the area. When he did Youngstown, he came here and performed in a small arena or small concert hall. So he spoke to me and many people that live here. And somebody we met later in life that we'll talk about probably later that's in musical theater. He wrote the foreword for the book, and he talked about how he met Springsteen one time on the streets of New York. He was in a parked car, and he thanked him for being there in special moments in his life and being somebody that he felt was along for the ride with him. And that's what it's felt like my whole life.
Yeah. So how about you, Maura? Is there a road to Damascus moment for you? Or did it came with, once again, this is twice I've mentioned Troy Aikman now, which is funny, but
Doesn't know who Troy Aikman is,
He's,
but
he's a
yes,
football player, right?
oh,
yes, he
okay,
is.
all
Yes, he is.
right.
But yeah, he's a Dallas Cowboy quarterback that's now does Fox, or now I guess he's on ESPN Monday Night Football. But anyway, he often talks about that's what comes with the dinner when he talks about fame and being the under pressure. That's what comes with the dinner. And so I didn't know if maybe being a Springsteen fan just came with the dinner. Yep, that's dad. I'm going to listen to Bruce.
Yeah, I really think it is. I couldn't tell you when I first learned about Bruce. Like it really, his music is just like there in my childhood memories. Like there's a photo of me at Christmas when I probably was 8. Maybe you probably know the photo I'm talking about. And I have a CD with Santa Claus is Coming to Town on it. That's probably my first like strong memory, but I know that I knew lots of Bruce music by then, even. Yeah, I think it just came with the territory. And I think seeing him live for the first time was not really a turning point because I was already a fan, but like really solidified it for me.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm a little self-conscious anytime I have someone on the show that has told they've listened to the podcast because I'm like, crap, now I'm saying all my normal lines and they're going, yeah, 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 Jesse, you always say that. But, right, there's two kinds of fans, the people that see Bruce their first time that go, wow, that was long. And then the others that see him the first time and go, oh my God, when can I do this again? The same thing with me, more. When I went to 2002, that was my first show. I went from being a good fan to a passionate fan. Oh my goodness, we want to do this. So I guess let's stick with you more. Maybe I want to hear about your first Bruce show, but what was the first show you went to with your dad, or did you go to a show solo or with friends first? Or let's talk about how this daughter dad thing started with going to gigs.
Yeah. Man, I still really haven't. Most of my concert going has been with my dad, which is honestly my preference. In part because not a lot of my friends have the same music taste as me. It is hard to talk people in their 20s into going to classic rock shows. It's also just great because it's a shared experience. It's so much fun, and we really get to like bond. And a lot of times our concert going was road trips, and we both really love road trips, so that's an added plus. The first concert was the first one Yo Ma.
I
That's the
believe it
first one
was.
that stands out to me. I think it was at Blossom, which is an outdoor concert venue near-ish Cleveland, and which really doesn't like fit with the rest of our concert going experiences at all, like very different. But that's the first one that really sticks out to me as one that I remember. And I think we looked it up once and I had to have been like 7 or 8 at that point. Yeah.
And so, Terry, was going to live shows something you always enjoyed doing?
Not, I would have enjoyed it. We really didn't have the parents being so young. We really didn't have the means to go.
Right.
I still remember my first concert of that classic story of a friend in middle school inviting you to go to a concert because his dad has an extra ticket. So I went and saw Kenny Loggins. I was in middle school, or junior high school. That was a great experience. Went to some local things. I know I saw Michael Stanley Band, which is a local Cleveland favorite. He's passed away recently, but actually Clarence Clemens played sax on one of his songs one time. So went to some of the Rip Burnoff type concert series, but never really got to go until, when I started going with Moira is when I really started to ramp it up and try to make up for lost time. And she liked it. So I thought this is a great opportunity to spend time with my favorite person. I'm not just saying that because she's here.
Yeah.
Uh, and
I also this was a fun full circle moment. I got to take one of my friends to see Kenny Loggins
yeah,
when we had an extra ticket.
that happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will
So
about her first Bruce concert if I could.
before
We
you do that, hold. I told you we go to tangents. So you made me smile. 1978, I'm a freshman at McNeese State University, and I'm in the library, and I saw at the time a the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And I just was struck by her. Just And so it must have been 79 because I was a sophomore, 78. So I got the freshman university yearbook and just went through till I found her picture so I could get her name and then used the directory to call. And her name's Jill. And I called Jill and I said, "Hey, this is Jesse. We met at the library." "Oh, yeah, you're Mary's friend." "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "I was wondering, Kenny Rogers is coming to the Civic Center. Would you want to go?" Kenny Loggins. I love Kenny Loggins. Kenny Loggins is my favorite guy. Oh, yes. I'm like, shit, how do I convince Kenny Loggins to come here so that the woman of my dreams can go out with me, right? So it's Kenny Rogers. Oh, that'd be fine too. We dated a couple of years, and then in 1980 I met Linda, and so we've been married 40 years.
oh,
So that it worked out okay. But every time I hear Kenny Loggins, I think of that just yes. Yeah, okay. All right. Sorry for that tangent.
that's a great story.
All right. Terry, tell me about the first show.
So when I took Moira to see Springsteen, we had floor seats, not floor seats, but in the pit. So
Okay.
we did the whole thing where you get there early and you get the wristband and try to get in. We got the number and we were one of the first people in the building. So we were talking to people in line, which again, that brotherhood, sisterhood of Springsteen fans really took us in. People are telling us, I've seen him 50 times. And we're like, holy moly. So
I
just,
remember they called the number and it was like near ours. Everybody starts screaming and hugging each other, like people
yeah,
we barely know. It was great.
oh, it was awesome. So they tell us, if you want to be in front of Stevie, stand here. If you want to be here. So we followed their instructions. We ran in. We're right in the front. It was amazing. Pretty close to where Clarence, or not, sorry, Jake was,
Hmm.
kind of directly in front of him. But when you're in front, it doesn't. Everybody's right there. I was talking to the security guard before the show a little bit, bantering, and then show starts. There, he ends up doing Dancing in the Dark. A few girls jump on stage, and a couple more. And I looked at the guy, the security guard who I was talking to, because it's quite a reach above, and I'm like 5'4", and Moira is 4'11", maybe on a good day. So I pick her up and he grabs her and gets her on stage. So she goes up. So she's on stage with, I'm like, this is really happening. And some people from New Jersey are standing by me and they're like, your daughter's on stage in their Jersey acts. I'm like, I can't believe this. So afterwards, they're all running up to Bruce. Moira beelines it for Jake and starts talking to Jake. I'm like, oh, that's about right. Because she played sax, he played sax,
Yeah.
and they're talking. I'm like, it was just an amazing moment, something you'll never be able to repeat again.
So what era is this? What show?
That
What
was
show?
Wrecking Ball tour,
Wrecking
right?
Ball. Yeah.
15, something
No,
like
I
that.
Yeah.
think it was a little earlier.
Was it
I
earlier
think
than
it was
that?
like I wasn't in high school yet. I think it was
Yeah.
maybe 2012.
I'm
That
looking it
makes
up in the
sense.
book while you talk.
Okay.
Okay. That's awesome. So by the way, I applaud you that because I would go, hi, I'm Jesse Jackson, and yes, I was on stage with Bruce Springsteen once. So good job for not just saying that, dropping that right away. That's cool. I want to hear more about Bruce, but I'm curious because are you an only child?
Yes.
Okay. So we only had the one son too. Lynn and I had Chris. He was born in 89. We joked that we had not made a conscious decision to have a child. So therefore we never made a second decision because we kept, and so there is advantages to being only child. There's disadvantages to being an only child. Luckily, he found a friend in high school when he was a freshman that Colin has been his brother ever since. They remain like best friends, and we call Colin our other son, and he calls Linda and I his other parents, and we love Colin's parents. So it all worked out. But he and I would do a lot of things together, right? Linda has always been someone who was very athletic and so would train doing half marathons, doing bicycle riding. And so Chris and I would entertain ourselves, start out going to movies. Linda and my sister in law, Mary, bought Chris Clayton, who's my brother in law, and Chris mini Ranger ticket game plan. So we went to baseball games together. So we had done a lot of stuff together and a few local bands. We would go see a lot of local bands together. What, why was music what you guys, and maybe there's other things you did, but was there a specific reason why you chose, Terry, that I want to hang out with my one of my best friends, one of my coolest people I know, and doing it through music? What led to that thought?
It happened very naturally. By like, I would take her to dance sometimes, or she'd do her dance stuff, and
Yeah.
we'd listen to music on the way home. Did a lot of in town traveling or road trips. We'd constantly be listening to music. I think it was just a natural progression to start going to concerts, and as we started going to concerts, she kept track of them, which ends up evolving into the book. But she kept the spread, literally kept the spreadsheet on every concert we went to. It was crazy because she'd delineate if they were in the rock hall, if they were in this
It
hall.
had a color coding
It had a color.
system.
It was, I was very proud as a dad, and I do finance now. So I was very proud on that level as well.
Well, and
Um,
as an administrator of school, right? Like, oh, this is
yes,
great, great records. Yeah.
It
absolutely.
served me well for my current work.
Yeah. So it just did happen naturally. Now she got real into musicals as well, and we did that too. I've been to New York once or twice. There was one time we went 3 months in a row. We don't live that far. You can catch a bus for less than $100, but we went to see the musical Newsies. I think 3 months in a row on a weekend. There are other things too, musicals.
I think he's seen more Broadway shows than I have now, which makes
Actually,
me very proud.
actually on Broadway, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. That is
Okay.
a Bruce fan too.
Yeah, you mentioned your mother and her love of pop. Is she not a concert going, or I'm hoping I'm not stepping in a bear trap that.
No, we especially when concerts are in town, we go with her. We had Packard Music Hall, which is a great venue, had really upped their who they were bringing in
Okay,
like when I was in high school. We saw Blondie there. She had opened her tour in New York and then come to Warren, which was wild.
that is
Um,
wild. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, she goes when it's local
Okay.
for sure.
Now, why, what do you think made you want to start documenting that more? Is that just part of your personality, or what drove that?
I think part of it is my personality. I like keeping records of things. I also think my mom scrapbooked when I was younger, and it felt important to have a record. And yeah, I don't know. I think something about it just, I just felt like it would be important. It felt like it was a huge part of my life, and it was so important to me, and I wanted to have all of the details. I tracked who I had seen, when it was, where it was, if it was associated with a particular tour. And I just really wanted to be sure that I had all of that information because it felt really significant.
And I do think your mom being a scrapbooker, it's in the atmosphere. Hey, we're documenting this. That makes a lot of sense. Was there, and I'll either one of you, was there a moment or a special show where you guys said, "Hey, this is our thing"?
I don't th it what I don't know. I was thinking about the moment when we decided we wanted to write a book,
Okay.
where we were on a plane coming back from somewhere. I don't remember where. It might have been New York. And we had both been reading, oh, what's it called? The Reading Promise?
Reading
The
promise. Yeah.
Reading Promise, which
Mhm.
is about a parent who reads to their child like every night until he leaves for college, or maybe it's a daughter. I don't remember. And we had both, I think we'd gotten it from my
Mommy
mom for
got
Mother's
Ezekiel.
Day.
Mommy got.
Copy. And so we had both read it, and I think you were finishing it on the plane, and then we were talking about how good of a book it was. It was a really excellent book. And then I don't remember which of us said it, but we could write something like this about our shared love of music, the same way that book talks about a shared love of books. Not that we don't have a shared love of books too, but
Right. Yeah, we definitely have that too.
Good. That's a whole nother avenue I'll go through in a minute. But I did want to, and I realize you cover this in the book. And by the way, go ahead and plug the name of the book. And at the end, we will talk about where you can find it. So go ahead.
It's called Aerosmith to ZZ Top: A Dad and Daughter's Rock and Roll Journey. And Moira, you want to say how we came up with the name? Because you
that
talk about it
was,
in the book.
yeah, I correct me if I'm remembering wrong, but I think we were at the Rock Hall for the pre-induction red carpet,
Yep.
and you were talking to someone else who was there waiting. I think that was that the year Green Day got in, or was that, yes,
Green
okay.
Day. Yep.
So Green Day was getting in, and I was there. I'd actually brought a couple of friends who were really into Green Day, and we were hoping that they would be on the red carpet. And you were talking to someone else in line, and he said something like, I've seen everyone from Aerosmith to ZZ Top.
And we looked at each other. Oh,
Oh, that's pretty catchy.
Yeah, that sounds good. I always like to preface the amount of times you've seen Bruce is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are. But obviously, you guys count because you count everything. But for the record, how many times have you seen him, Terry?
I've seen him 10. Columbus was my 10th show. I've gone a lot in the last couple years.
Okay, good. More?
Think it's three.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Which band have you seen the most?
For me now,
Yeah,
it's Bruce.
okay,
But Moira,
For me, it's Joan Jett.
okay. And how many times?
I
Oh
think it's
man, seven?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good. Is you're starting to document this. you're doing this, and then I love this idea the reading promise is partially responsible for that. When you guys, it often people say, "Oh, we are to write a book," or "I are to write a book." Boy, if you knew the stories I had, oh, if I wrote a book of it. But it's actually a lot of hard work to write a book. Talk to me through, and you guys just, I'm sure you told the story hundreds of times, but I'll let you guys, how did you guys start? Okay, if we're going to do this, and the mechanics of how you guys work together.
I'll start with COVID hit,
Okay.
and I get Moira from Kent State, which is in Ohio, not real far
Yeah.
from us. I bring her home, and over time, we're like, let's work on the book. We can't go to concerts, or
Right.
we're
There's
like,
nothing else to do.
we're watching virtual concerts like Dropkick Murphys or whatever we can. So we start writing it and we set it up A to Z. And then we go through the process, which was fun of who are we going to pick for A? Who are we going to pick for B and C? And that becomes fun as part of the exercise. Moira, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was really, yeah, we went through, we picked who would be with which chapter, and then we divided up the chapters between us and had to decide, okay, who wants to talk about, because obviously we both have great memories about all of the concerts, but then, yeah, divvying up who was going to do what, and yeah. What was the letter? I'm blanking. What was the letter we couldn't agree on?
That was T. That was the only one where we did two for the main part. So it was George Thorogood for me and Tallest Man on Earth for you. Everywhere else, we just picked one for the main part. But then if we saw additional ones, we did outtakes. So we tell a lot of stories in the book. It's not just about the concert. Again, about tangents and tangents to a lot of things within our lives and just a chance to share. And I always joke with my wife. I go, when I get older and I'm having just give me that book and have me read it every day. It'll make me happy. That's all I'll need.
So was there a hard and fast rule of first name, last name, or did we bend based on convenience?
Sometimes, uh, I'm gonna have to look. I know we did a little bit, like E Street Band instead of Springsteen, I
Okay.
believe. So E is Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Oh,
So
nice.
in that way, we got a little creative. But Jay was going to be Joan Jett no matter what. But when you really start thinking, there's Journey, there's Billy Joel, there's so
Yeah.
many.
That was a hard one, but also I was never gonna let it be
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
other than
exactly. Yeah. Mara, when did you, let's talk that Joan Jett moment. When did you discover her and what about her made this so passionate in your heart?
yeah, that's another one where I really don't remember at what point. I really do feel like I have known her music most of my life, and I'm sure I have. I, gosh, I think the first time we saw her,
Buffalo for $5.
oh yeah, that was great. Art Park in Buffalo, which is an incredible venue. That it was just incredible. It was one of the best live shows I've ever seen. And then we saw her get inducted into the Rock Hall, which was that night was one of the best nights of my life. It was up there on my list of best concerts ever. That was just so incredible. And then I actually got the chance to meet her twice at concerts, and she's so kind and she's so wonderful. And also, I think she means a lot to me from growing up and being feminist and caring a lot about like women's rights and women's position in society, and like her music is very much about like breaking stereotypes and like girl power, and that meant a lot to me. And as I got older and as I came out as queer, that also, she's not out, but there's definitely like undertones, and she's very outspoken about LGBT rights, and that is also really meaningful to me.
I did not know that. So this is a double whammy because it's Pride Month as well. Do you want to share that anything about that journey or we can move on?
Oh, sure. I I came out. I was in high school when I came out, and my My identity's evolved over time. I came out as a lesbian at first and then later as non-binary. And I think music was also really important to me there. It's funny looking back, a lot of the artists I liked were queer, and I didn't realize that a lot of the artists that I liked were queer until I was looking back, having come out, and been like, oh, I liked Queen a lot, and I liked Elton John a lot. And maybe there was a reason for that. But yeah, and I think yeah, that's it's music has definitely been like a very present part of queerness for me and still is. Like still as I'm discovering new artists and as I'm going to Pride, music is a big driving factor for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad you're sharing. So, Dad, I'm going to ask you. Last year for Pride, I had a few people on, and including a married couple that he came out as gay, and they decided to stay married. They loved each other, and they decided to stay married. And we talked about how much hate and how much anger there is about this. And you, as a father, I don't understand. And one of my favorite stories, once again, I'll tell a tangent, is my son was dating in college an Hispanic woman. And so we were meeting her for the first time, and she says, is your parents going to be okay meeting you're dating someone who's Mexican? And Chris goes, my parents wouldn't care if you were Juan. If you're nice to me, they're going to love you. And I was like, thank you. We did something right. Share a little bit, Dad, that your feelings of it, because obviously you're so proud of Mora, and talk about this, maybe the your journey of that.
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise to me that she had come out. We spent so much time together,
Yeah,
going to concerts and on the road, and we'd go to Broadway, and the people she'd meet and talk to, you just know. But in hindsight, going to concerts and going to these kind of things, you're almost always with inclusive type people and accepting type people, not so much judgmental type people. So I was really happy that we did a lot of that because people probably realized it as she was starting to get older. And nobody, there was no judging. That just never happened in those crowds we were in.
Yeah.
So I was really glad that's the pathway we took to spend time together because we really didn't deal with a lot of people making comments or anything. Moira has always been a great kid. Now she's not a kid, but has always had
they're
her own.
always kids to us.
Yeah, I know, but has always had her own informed opinions about things. And
Yeah,
I was a social studies teacher when I taught, and that was something I always tried to drill into my students is think for yourself. I'm going to give you facts. I'm never going to tell you how to think, but
yeah,
please learn to think for yourself. Get the facts and do that. And she always, and that's why I think she's in the kind of field she's in. Research, find out things before you make a judgment. But I couldn't be more proud of Moira. We went to a Pride event in New York City together. When was that? Was
It was 2019. It was New York Pride was World Pride that year, and it was the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, and it was
the
great.
only negative was it was really hot.
Oh, it was so
Oh,
hot.
I've never been that hot in my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Good for you guys. I appreciate that. All right, you guys took turns on the letters. Did you say like, well, obviously you wanted to write J because of that. Was there one you specifically? Did you guys? Was there much back and forth, or I'll take this one, I'll take this one, and back and forth?
I think we just sat down, just distributed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's been a while now, so I can't remember if it was like
sure.
really want this one,
Yeah,
other than Joan Jett.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think, like I said, we both have really great memories of all of them. So it wasn't like, oh, I didn't have a great time at that one. No, we were both
yeah.
really excited about all of them.
Was there any cross editing? Did you give her, okay, here's my write up of the E Street Band, and what did I miss? What did I forget? What details should I fill in?
Yeah, we did a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And she took such great notes and record keeping. That helped.
yeah,
But there were seminal moments that happened during it to us that you don't forget. And the Cheap Trick concert, we had a really cool experience. There were things that happened that's got to go in the book. It dovetails a little bit to We talked about books.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, the OJ's chapter, it, it goes into our love of literature because of a book Moira read where the doll in the book kept singing Love Train. So that's talked about in the book. Pro wrestling comes up because the rock and wrestling connection. And my grandmother was a big wrestling fan, and I grew up going to a lot of shows and did some stuff locally with it. And Moira knew that. We went and met Roddy Piper at an autograph thing. She had her Cyndi Lauper shirt on, and they had a great conversation. So there's things like that in it too. So it
It's
dovetails.
very much about everything that we're passionate about.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I had the guys who are working to get Cindy on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on in an earlier episode, and the biggest comment they said is most people go, "She's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,"
Right.
right? It is this one of those things. Another tangent. You guys are just really good at this. I'll twist it as a question for you, Terry. So back when Chris was young, WrestleMania was going to be in Houston. The Rock versus Steve Austin.
Oh, wow.
And Chris was like, "Oh, that would be the greatest thing ever." And so I said, "Okay, get straight A's and I'll take you." And then I immediately ordered tickets, right? Whether he was going to get the grades or not, we were going to go. And sure enough, he got his straight A's. And we drove down to Houston together, got a really cheap hotel room that was nice. And we went to their like the WrestleMania exhibit before, and he ate at a Hooters for the first time, and we went to WrestleMania, and he asked, "Is it okay if I throw up the fingers, Dad?" And I go, "Yeah." And so he's 33, and at least once every 6 months, he pulls me aside and has me watch that match. And he can name every phrase that the announcer is saying. And he says, "This is one of the greatest moments of my life." And I just took you to WrestleMania. I feel like I was being a good. Is there a moment like that where you were surprised how insightful it was to your daughter?
I don't know that there was a moment. It was probably collective of all
Okay.
those things. When she got on stage with him, and that was pretty early on in our
Yeah,
contract, that would be one that just, it's something you'll never forget. I did not have a very good cell phone at that point, like for videos.
sure.
I was able to go online and look at what other people did. So that I was able to grab some pictures from that. It was very moving. And she goes to school the next day, and the kids are like, "Who's Bruce Springsteen?" But she's telling me the teachers are like, "You what?"
Yeah,
That's how it worked.
that's awesome. I love that. So is there, and it sounds like you no longer live in the same area.
Yeah, yeah, I live in New Jersey now.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure they miss you. So,
Yes.
yeah, I bet. So, the first time you went to a show without her, was there a little bit of sadness,
Oh,
Terry?
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Right before COVID, I want to say it was January, February 20, we went and saw Billy Joel. And that was at Madison Square Garden. We were like, let's go to this residency he's doing.
Yeah,
And it was interesting because I guess he brought somebody on stage every night with him. And that night it was Bon Jovi. It was just
cool.
a phenomenal night. And then the world shut down. And ever since, Moira has some underlying health issues. So she's not able to go to a big crowded event like
Yeah,
that. So it just, that's been hard. I miss that a lot. But again, we had so many great experiences and we talk about them. That helps a lot.
Yeah, and I feel really lucky that I got all of these experiences before all of this happened.
good. And how is your health?
It is what it is.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on. Is there is there a white you missed? Was there someone you guys both wanted to see that just through circumstances didn't work out?
There's plenty of people who passed away before we got a
Yes,
chance to see
and yeah,
them.
Like
absolutely.
Elvis,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, right? You there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Prince.
Prince.
Prince would have
Oh,
been
yeah, I would
somebody.
have loved to have seen Prince.
David Bowie, Eddie Money. There's a
Yeah.
lot past
Yeah.
that that we really regret not seeing. Dropkick Murphys were on the top of my list of a band to go see, and then COVID hit, and they actually played here in Warren a few months ago during St. Patrick's Day time. So I actually did get to go see them. Again, I wish Moira would have been there with me, but
Yeah, I bet.
it was a great concert. I have a friend named Rob that he went to my first Springsteen concert with me.
Yeah.
He was one that I've got that habit of taking somebody for their first Springsteen concert. He was the one I took first. I regret not taking Moira that time because I thought she was too young to go to that big of a concert. And I was wrong. They played E Street Shuffle, and then we started going to concert. He hasn't played it since for us going, and that's there's a regret.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there songs that you are chasing for Bruce or another artist? I'll ask you for if there's a Bruce, Terry, and then you for Joan Jett, is there a song you're chasing?
I finally heard Jungle Land at the September 3rd show in New Jersey. A friend of ours I met through Moira and going to
Yeah,
theater. He's a big Springsteen fan. I met up with him and we went and saw it. And I finally saw Jungle Land. So now it's Santa Claus is coming to town because that's a bond thing that Moira and I have.
sure,
I'd love to hear Outlaw Pete because I have a friend named Pete that's a big Springsteen fan. And I'd love to hear Terry's song, but I don't
sure.
think it's going to get played in concerts.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's very nice. He did Better Days, which is on my chase the very next show in Europe. So I
Oh,
missed it by a night and an ocean. Yeah, that's
Oh,
good. So how about you for the fabulous Miss Jet?
yeah. I'm chasing, which this is probably never going to get played, but Everybody Needs a Hero from her latest album.
Okay.
That's on my list. And we're on the same page about the Springsteen songs we're chasing. I still want to hear E Street Shuffle, and I will not let you live it down that you wouldn't take me
no.
that first time. But I'm also chasing Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Very nice. That's good. That's very good. So what haven't I asked you guys that I should have?
I can't think of anything that, Moira,
Okay.
anything extra you'd want to share?
Okay.
Nothing
It,
comes
it,
to mind.
it was so much fun writing that book
Yeah.
and the way we set it up with instead of a table of content, it's called table of concerts. We have an intermission in the middle with like fun facts of how we feel like after we added everything up with Moira's spreadsheet, we drove over 27,000 miles. And there's like facts like that in there.
Yeah.
Uh, so that it just was fun. When we did the acknowledgments, we a lot of friends in our lives and stuff we put in there. We asked them what their first concert was, so their names in there and then their first concert. And that's been something we've started to do is what's your first concert? We love asking people that.
Yeah.
And that's something that you just, people light up because most of the time it's a very good memory.
Sure.
What, I don't know if I know your first concert.
So
Not Kenny Loggins or Rogers.
no, it wasn't. I believe it was Foghat and ZZ Top.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and there may have been, because this is in the middle 70s, there may have been a strong odor of other type of substance. And I remember getting a really bad headache because I was not a smoker of any type. Though I just was on, and I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but there is a fellow podcaster, American Werewolf in London, does a once a month a episode where they have a guest who talks about their first concert. And it doesn't have to be your actual first concert. And I talked about my first Bruce show and we talked about that. So that was a lot of fun bringing back, remembering that, and said that I would love to go back to that show again. Now that I'm this passionate of a fan, to go back and hear that with experienced ears and see the show with experienced eyes, to see Clarence knowing, to see Danny, to just to soak it all in. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up shortly, but I am a couple of quick questions, quick hit. Terry, is there a and I'm going to stay positive. I'm not going to talk about a show that disappoints you, but I'm going to ask you: was there a concert that stands out that was better than you thought it was going to be? It surprised you how awesome it was.
It's outlined in our book, Cheap Trick. I
Okay,
always like Cheap Trick, but when we went, they blew us away.
okay,
It was a great experience, and we went and saw them a few times after that.
okay,
That was the one that I knew I liked them, but they
yeah.
blew us away.
Maura, how about you?
Second on Cheap Trick, that just blew me away.
Okay,
But also Green Day.
Okay.
at their Rock Hall induction, which actually we never got to see them independently of that.
Okay.
But we had been meeting Green Day fans all day who had come from across the country to see them get inducted, and I was like, wow, they're really passionate. And then the band got up there and started playing, and I was like, oh, I get it.
And that happened with the Killers too. They
Oh,
were
yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
playing on behalf of Tom Petty, and we had never seen them live, and we were blown away.
I love the Killers and just had never crossed my mind to go see them. And then that was incredible.
Very
I watch
nice.
that YouTube video all the time of them
That's cool.
doing American
That's cool.
Girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool. All right. Where I end every podcast with the Mary question. And what that is, if this is the first time, if you're Terry and Morris friends or family and you're listening, they did you proud. But Jay Armstrong is a retired honors English teacher. And when he was teaching, he would give the lyrics to Thunder Road to his class. And they would be his honors English class. And they would discuss the song as if it was a poem. And then he would ask them at the end of the class, does Mary get in the car? So once again, ladies first. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. Do you want to give a reason why?
Right now it's just vibes, but if I went back to it with my PhD student analyzing a text precision, I think I could come up with something to support it. I think the evidence is in the text. I think
Okay.
it's there.
If you want to think about it and record me your little mini dissertation, I'll attach it I'll put it out as a little bonus episode. How about you, Terry?
The person who met his wife in high school, like we ended up getting married, and she's a very strong woman. And if I would ever say you ain't a beauty, but you're not half bad, it'd be no, she ain't getting in the car. But the romantic and optimist in me says, yeah, she's getting in that car. So I'm going to say, yeah, she's getting in that car.
Okay. As I say many times, I believe that our narrator, she talks about all the time that she isn't pretty. And so he says that to reach her objections is how I, in my mind, do it. But yeah, my wife says the same thing. He caught her ugly. Hell no, she's not getting in the car. All right. This was so much fun. Tell us how to reach you and how can they find the book?
The book's on Amazon. You could probably Barnes and Noble and all the major booksellers. Aerosmith to ZZ Top, Dad and Daughter's Rock and Roll Journey, Terry and Moira Armstrong. And it's just been great. We appreciate this opportunity. Every time we go to concerts, like we talked about, the community of Bruce has been so great. Just the people that I know personally, there's a guy named Justin, and like I said, my brother-in-law, and all the people I've been going to these concerts with since Moira and missing Moira, it has strengthened our bonds. So, and I wouldn't have that without this opportunity to go to these concerts and Bruce bringing those people together.
That's wonderful. Maura, any final thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, I second that. It's been really great to talk about this, and yeah.
This was a great Father's Day gift for me, Jesse. Thanks for letting me.
Well, I'm glad to do it. Like I said, I'm going to do a quick one on this and release it on Sunday. Thank you both. This was so much fun. So I'm going to end with they say that love comes and goes, but darling, what do they know? I'm reaching for heaven. We'll make it there. Darling, it's just the power of prayer. Baby, it's just the power of prayer. Darling, it's just the power of prayer. Thank you, Moira. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, listeners. Remember to be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.